I have a few questions about a couple of things, Sri Aravindan. See, one is about Sri Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And for most part of his life, he kept castigating Hinduism for whatever reason, okay? And towards the end of his life, he embraced Buddhism. And people, for all his achievements, etc., and from the background that he is from, you also call himself a bodhisattva and all, okay? They're all hovering in the background. At the same time, in the book, you people have already discussed about this one, okay? That Buddhism was catalyzing certain degenerate tendencies in any social, whatever civilization. In this particular case, it has resulted or in accentuating or exacerbating the untouchability issue, etc., etc. So that's all. This is part of a package of Buddhism, and there is also a valid tendency to co-opt Ambedkar and his legacy into the Hindutva movement. Okay, how do you reconcile all this? Difficult to reconcile from the meaning, from the face of it. That's how it appears to be. How do you reconcile them in your book and in your thoughts? That's one point. The second thing is about the interesting observations that you make about the prevalent criticism about Hindu civilization, probably about its Hindu so-called rate of growth to karmic fatalism to everything else, and then you are trying to juxtapose it against the certain valid tendencies in our Hindu civilization about the ways by which Dharmic civilization is also entrepreneurial in nature because of the action-orientedness of it. So how do you reconcile these two things? First is about the reconciliation of Dr. Ambedkar's position, okay, and then the second is about this entrepreneurial tendencies in the context of karmic fatalism. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Othisaivu Ramasamy. And the first one important observation that you made during your question, I will come to that a Hindutva movement is trying to co-opt Dr. Ambedkar. The answer is they are not trying to co-opt Dr. Ambedkar. They have always been with Dr. Ambedkar for a long time. They have been standing with Dr. Ambedkar, particularly Dr. Edgever. It was after Dr. Ambedkar made the statement that I was born a Hindu but I will not die a Hindu. After that only Dr. Ambedkar was invited to the RSS camp by Dr. Edgever. It's a very interesting thing. A person has said that I won't die a Hindu, and that person, at that time you have to remember that there were a lot of national leaders. He could have called any national leader, but he called Dr. Ambedkar to the camp. So we have to see this particular point of view of the Hindu Sanatan people with respect to Dr. Ambedkar, that they understood his pain. You have to make a difference between what the orthodoxies saw and what the Sanatan people saw. When the Hindu Sanatan people saw this, they thought that he was talking from the space of his pain. His own brothers not allowing him to take water from the temple pond. His own brothers not allowing him to enter into the temple. And his own brothers discriminating him with terms like untouchable, unapproachable, unseeable, those kind of terms. So, and they were justifying it. There is a big report in which the British government wanted, there was a person called Ranga Iyer who was in Madras, and he moves a bill for removing the civil disabilities of the scheduled communities, for the depressed classes. At that time the name was depressed classes. And every Hindu Mahasabha person, every Arya Samaj person has supported it. And many of the Congress leaders have supported. There were some Congress people who didn't support it, but many of the Congress leaders also supported it. The British government was in a fix because the British government has been cultivating the scheduled community leaders for a long time. Pointing out, they didn't have to cultivate in the sense by giving them any allurements. All they had to tell is, look at the way the Hindus are treating you. If we leave this place, the Hindus would treat you like subhuman beings. And it was almost true also. That is the shameful thing that we have to accept. That was true also. In such a situation, this particular bill comes, and the British government finds this out, that if this bill is made a law, most of the people would join the national movement against the British. So they, at the same time, if they block the bill, They have the power to, if they block the bill, they would look like they are against reforms. So what they would do? They are finding a very interesting, easy escape. Brilliant. He says that the communications, in the confidential communications, they tell that get the opinion of orthodox people from every place. And then point out that we cannot enter into the problem of your religion. That is the Victoria Proclamation of 1858. So get the things. And the report runs into 1,000 pages. You will find that every Arya Samaj is a matter of pride for each and every Hindu Sangatanist. Every Hindu Sabha person, every Arya Samaj person says that they should enter the temple. And every orthodox person, including some very famous Sangaracharyas, they have written elaborate justification why they should not be allowed into the temple. Now one person says, one Sangaracharya says, you see, right now, because these people are still in this situation, you could use them to clean your houses and everything. They can enter your houses and clean the houses. You are feeling safe. But tomorrow, if they are allowed inside the temple, they will become supportive of the national movement. And then if they enter your temple, there is no guarantee for your life. These people may attack you. Further, if they are like that, then the entire Hindu community pays them and makes them live. But if they become independent, then you will have to pay them. That will be a big economic burden on the Raj. So they become suddenly very, Raj Viswasis, and they talk like that. And the most less objectionable thing comes from Tamil Nadu. One of the Shankaracharyas says that the Shankaracharya's office sends a message. And they say that, all are Hindus, but each Hindu is born with a particular occupation. Each occupation is sacred, okay, but they have to stand in that particular area and they have to view God and worship. A person who takes bath, who becomes clean and who enters the temple, circumambulates the deity and all that, what punya he gets, that punya an untouchable can get from looking at just the cobra. So don't worry about allowing them inside. Okay, that is the least offensive of the statement. So you can understand the other statement. So this was the situation. So it is in this situation that Dr. Ambedkar says that I was born a Hindu but I won't die a Hindu. At that time the Hindu Sangatanists understand his frustration and agony and they are ready to stand with him. So there is no co-opting. Okay. We have always been with them. Yeah. Okay. Then the next part. Yes, he had told all these harsh words about Hinduism, very, very painful. You read it, if you read those words. He had talked very ill of even Rama and Sita and Krishna. When we read it, it is very painful for us. But the sin of those words, they should go to the orthodox leaders of Hinduism. That is what I would say. Okay? The sin of those words of Dr. Ambedkar, which were born from his pain, that sin should go to all our orthodox leaders and all those, our forefathers, who supported untouchability, who were opposed to temple entry. Right? Now, I come to the next part. Then how do you see Dr. Ambedkar as a bodhisattva? I always refer to Dr. Ambedkar as a bodhisattva, and I know that has generated a lot of harsh criticism of me. But the real point is that Dr. Ambedkar also said this. He said that if we consider ourselves as children of God, and hence we are all equal, that is a very shaky foundation of equality. The real spiritual foundation of equality, the real spiritual foundation of democracy comes from realization that we are all part of the Brahman. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi and Sarvam Kalvidam Brahmam. These are the basic Mahavakyas that the spiritual foundations of democracy. My problem with the Hindus is that they didn't live up to this expectation. So that is what Dr. Ambedkar said. So in Dr. Ambedkar, you have a very vibrant space, a challenge to Hindus to live up to that expectations. So that is how I see Dr. Ambedkar. That is, I think that explains how I see him and how I revere him, despite the fact that I kind of disagree with his characterization of Buddhism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
He's of course, a complex and great person, and we have to weigh things as per the times and stuff like that. The next one.
Next question is about entrepreneurship. Yes, there has been this strong talk about Hindu rate of growth. Even the great Raghuram Rajan talked about the Hindu rate of growth. And we have this karmic fatality and all those kind of things. But the reality is something different. So I will give you just one solid instance for this. There was a person called Madurai Pillai. He belonged to Parayar community. And one day he came and he was sitting near outside the Srirangam temple, and he was listening to the Katha Shiva. He was moved by it. He wanted the Panchasamskaras. He went and he asked for it, and they told that the person who was doing the Katha Shiva didn't hear his plea. I forgot his name. He was a great person, and other persons, his disciple told, "You are a Panchama, so we cannot give you that." Then he started a fast unto death. He didn't put a big pandal and all. He simply sat there without food. And hearing this, that person came and he made the Panchasamskara. Othisaivu Ramasamyji, regarding this fatalism, the so-called Hindu rate of growth, which even our great Raghu Rajan talked about, the truth is that India has had an extraordinarily wonderful track record of philanthropic services motivated by Dharmic concepts. I will give you one instance, one very solid instance. It is that of Madurai Pillai, who was working in Kolar Goldfield. So in Kolar Goldfield, there were a lot of scheduled community people who were working. And there was actually a competition between the Neo-Buddhist groups as well as the Christian missionaries to harvest the souls. There was one person, this Madurai Pillai was there, he was not interested in all this. He came to Srirangam and he was just sitting outside a hall. That hall, a Katha Kalashipam was going on. One Sri Arulmari Venkadesa Varaprasada Swamigal, he was giving the pravachana and he was listening to this, he was moved by it, he wanted to become a Sri Vaishnava. And so he wanted the Panchasamskara, so he went and asked his disciples of that Swami, and the disciples said that you being a scheduled community person, we cannot give it. So what he did was that he started a hunger strike, silently, not with paraphernalia and all that. Silently he sat without food. When the Swami heard that, he came and he gave the Panchasamskara, and then he asked Swami to come to Kolar. So he went to Kolar, and Madurai Pillai was also a great entrepreneur, and he invested all this money for the educational services of the scheduled community persons. He also built a temple for Nambarmal there. And everything that he started, he would give Nambarmal and all that kind of names. And a lot of people got benefited from it. He fought for the rights of the scheduled community people. He could become a representative of the people in the Mysore socio-political ecosystem. And because of him, what happened was that later a Buddhist Dalit scholar writes that in the Kolar Goldfield, in terms of providing humanitarian services to people, Sri Vaishnavism defeated definitely Buddhism. That is what, see, we have to understand this because we all know about that famous movie Tangala, where it is shown that it was a Buddhism that actually lifted the people. It was in the context of Kolar Goldfield. But actually in Kolar Goldfield, this was the real truth. The real Tangalan was Madurai Pillai. He fought for the rights of the Dalit people. He fought for the rights of all the Indians and his people also. The people who were with him. There was one Puvaraha Pillai. That person's life is so wonderful. The Indians would not be allowed inside the cinema theatres. It was reserved for the Europeans because they felt that these people are chewing pan, they would spit and it would become dirty. So they had to put the movies, everything in the open air and they have to watch. So he built a theatre, first theatre in Kolar, which was built for Indians, was built by a scheduled community person who was a Sri Vaishnavite. And his final ending, I will tell you, and that will show you what kind of a great soul he was. He was going in the car and suddenly a cobra comes before the car. He silently stops the car. He goes in front of the cobra and he bows down before the cobra. It was exactly what Sri Ramanuja did when he saw, one of the devotees of Ramanuja did, when he saw a cobra with the thorn in its mouth, he took the thorn. The same way he went and he worshipped before, just sat bowing before the cobra. The cobra went away, and that moment he left the physical body. So that kind of people, entrepreneurial, at the same time dharmic, they did the social emancipation in such a huge, beautiful way. This is just one example, sir. There are a lot of examples. The famous Vavusi, how he got into this? He got into this because Sasi Maharaj of Sri Ramakrishna Mission told him, come away from this dry Vedanta and fight for your nation. That is how he gets into this Swadeshi stream. And who are the people who helped him? Bhai Paramanand from Arya Samaj. He comes from all the way and he is helping. And the Ramakrishna Mission sannyasis, they help him. So, if you look at it, you will find that even under the oppression of colonialism, Karavela Shetty was a great philanthropist. He was the first person to start Shira Dana in schools. That is, during the interval time, they would supply milk to all the students. That was the forerunner of the midday meal scheme. So, you look at it, we have done under extraordinary circumstances. You have the colonial surplus, and using the colonial surplus, then you are doing charity work. That is something very easy. But you are under colonial oppression, and in that you are doing charity work, philanthropic work. That is because of Dharma. And that has happened in India not in a long time before. It happened right in the 20th century, 19th century. So that I think answers your question. Yes.
Thank you.
Right? Okay. And we have to see the entire thing like this. The colonial surplus creating a semblance of charity, the real Hindu spirit that fights against colonialism. This, I am saying this because right there in Kanyakumari district, South Trivandrum, I have seen how the narrative is built. That the Britishers came and they gave enlightenment, and because of that the people started fighting for their rights. That is not true, because we have seen that in the case of Ayya Vaikundar and Tolchilai Kalagam, in Tolchilai Poratam, or the shoulder cloth rebellion in Kanyakumari district. Okay.
You aptly mentioned about Ayya Vaikundar. We can compare him, to some extent we can compare him with Madurai Pillai, because he uplifted the spirit of the, at that time, Nadars were there at the receiving end, both from the local people and from the British government. They put a bait, like for this their conditions, putting the blame on entire blame on Hinduism, and then try to convert him, to convert those people to Christianity. Especially London Mission took great efforts to convert masses into Christianity. At that time, Ayya Vaikundar, he stood as a bulwark against the proselytization efforts of the missionaries. Actually, the Tirunelveli collector, he sent a report to the Travancore king or resident, requesting them to take action against this impostor. They called him, the collector called him, because the missionaries, they requested him to take action against Muthukutti or Ayya Vaikundar. He sent a report to the Travancore government, asking them to take action against this. Actually, they mentioned him as a mentally disturbed man, mentally retarded man and imposter. So, such was the wrath he received from the British government. And he was put in prison by the puppet ministry at Travancore. Please elaborate on this aspect of Ayya Vaikundar.
Actually, here I have to express my gratitude to you for an important book of yours that changed my entire perspective of how to view social history. It was Valangai Malayam Chandur Samudaya Cheppedu. It is one of the path-breaking books as to see how the mythological or the Puranic narratives have to be combined, harmonized with the social history of the place, and how we can create our own historic discourses. In a way, you are the inspiration for this book. Okay, so I have to express my gratitude for that to you. And coming to this, you mentioned about the Tirunelveli collector sending this report. What he writes is that this man is a danger to the British rule, that time company rule. That he was not telling about Jati and all that thing. The Travancore government was forced to take action because this person they told was against the British rule. He might overthrow the British rule. He is planning a kind of a rebellion, take action against him. So that shows one thing, that Ayya Vaikundar was seen as a threat to colonialism. Was he really a threat to colonialism? The answer is yes. Because Ayya Vaikundar, for the first time in my knowledge, for the first time in Indian history, he creates a criticism of the colonial rule based on the Puranic language. So what he says is, the Surapadma who was killed by Skanda, Ravana who was slain by Rama, and Duryodhana who was Kamsa and Duryodhana killed by Pandavas and Sri Krishna, that demonic force has come today in the form of the white persons. And they are destroying the native societies in every continent. கண்டந்தோறும் குலத்தர்மங்களை அழிக்கக்கூடியவன், கண்டந்தோறும் அவன் வந்து வரையறைகளை அழிக்கக்கூடியவன். That is the term that he uses. And then he also opposes conversion, proselytization. ஒரு வேதம் தொப்பி உலகமெல்லாம் போடு என்பன், மறுத்தொரு வேதம் தொப்பி மறுத்தொரு வேதம் சிலுவை வையமெல்லாம் போடு என்பன், அத்தருதி வேதம் அவன் சவுக்கம் போடு என்பன், குற்றம் உரைப்பான் கொடுவேத காரணவன். So what he says is essentially that the person who tells that everybody should wear a cap, which is Islam, the person who says that everybody should wear a cross, Protestantism, the person who wants to bring everything under the control of the priesthood, Catholic religion, all these are problematic things because they always see people as sinful people. At the same time, he emphasizes Thalakadapuri Tarkapade Dharma. So he uses the Puranic narrative to criticize colonialism. Then he uses that the theodiversity should be preserved. For that he creates a resistance, and this is seen as a danger to the colonial government. Now, in my book, what I have done is I have differentiated between two rebellions. One is the rebellion by famous Veluthambi Thalava. Veluthambi Thalavai's rebellion was initially he was a collaborator with the British, and later because of the taxes and everything, it was because of the economic disturbances, particularly through the land-owning communities of Thiruvidampur, he was opposing the British. It was purely something that you can understand in terms of the economic history. But the uprising of Ayya Vaikundar was a genuine democratic uprising. The difference is very clear. So this shows the Dharmic continuity in the case of Ayya Vaikundar's movement. So Ayya Vaikundar's movement, and think about it, instinctively Ayya Vaikundar makes a saffron flag with the Anbukudi as the flag. And he talks about the entire India being liberated. So all these things have come together in Ayya Vaikundar, and he says that what is the basic taboo in caste system? It is water and the food. He tells all the communities, let them come together, take water from the same well, and let us eat together. So he creates a kind of, I would say he would be the forerunner of the RSS camp of the world variety. I would say even that. So that is the genuine uprising, and in fact I am indebted to you for making me understand this in the historical context.
See, you talk about Advaita in detail in the book, from the Upanishads to the Manisha Panjakam of Shankaracharya to Narayana Guru to Swami Chidbhavananda as a great emancipating force. In a similar way, you talk about the Shaiva and Vaishnava Bhakti movements, starting from Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Jnaneshwar, Tukaram, and all the way up to Kabir Das, Shankaradeva in Assam and everything. And these were all like core Hindu spiritual movements. And then you use a word like emancipation in this context, which is really a word from Christian theology. So in essence, you are saying that you are opposing the Western and the leftist discourse on the social history, and you claim that you provide an alternative Dharmic framework, but you end up using the same nomenclature and the same jargons of your enemies. So this has been, okay, I am not saying this, this has been one of the criticism against your book, which I have heard in the public domain. What is your response to this?
Well, when that particular criticism was made first, my response was this, that it is not a Christian term, it was a term that comes from the Western Enlightenment movement. So we have to make a very clear difference between Western Christianity, Protestantism, and Western Enlightenment movement.
Okay.
Okay. The Western Enlightenment movement might be represented by persons like Francis Bacon, from Spinoza, Wordsworth, those kind of people, Voltaire, Rousseau, those kind of people. They were not basically Christian. They were people who were secular humanists who have dissociated themselves from Christianity, and they have come out. And their value system in a way gels with the Advaitic value system.
Okay.
For example, Swami Vivekananda had a great respect for Spinoza. And many people have pointed out the similarities, they are not the same, but the similarities between the non-dualistic or monist view of Spinoza and Swami Vivekananda. And so the point is, the Enlightenment values are not Christian values, though they came from the West. And of course, colonialism made us see it like they are Christian values. Okay, that was the answer that I was supposed to give. Then a particular book came for my review. It was a collection of very scholarly papers edited by Kanji Gopinath, from mathematician from Indian Institute of Science. It is called Computational Me. In that there was a paper by, I think, Nodam Narasimha.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And that paper, he pointed out a very important thing, that Francis Bacon actually makes a break. Francis Bacon was the first person to use the term emancipation. Okay. At that time I didn't know that. When I used this book, when I used the term here, I didn't know about this particular aspect that I am going to talk about in the book. But I always liked Francis Bacon. That is a different thing. So I used the term social emancipation. I didn't want to use the term social empowerment. Emancipation was a better term. So I used it. So then in this book I read, then Rodam Narasimha pointed out one thing. If you take the entire Greek methodology, it is like they have an axiom, and based on that axiom they would be developing their mathematics. Okay. So everything has to be bent according to the axiom they are taking. It was Francis Bacon who takes a break from that, and he points out that this is something that is already there in Indian tradition, and he says that there might be a possibility that Indian tradition influenced Francis Bacon. Okay, so I was kind of feeling pacified, I am feeling kind of validated.
Vindicated.
Yeah, vindicated or validated that this is not a Christian term, this is not a Western term, this is a universal term in which there is a possibility of an Indian input.
Right.
So that way I think I was satisfied with the use of the term. I think it is the most appropriate term to use.
I too feel the same.
I want to ask you one question. It may be a timing one. You know the honor killing of Kavin in Tamil Nadu, a poor guy. Our VCK leader, the leader of Vidudhai Chirutaigal party, Thirumavalan has said the Sanatana Dharma is the reason for his killing. Your detailed book gives any answer to this question?
Well, it so happens that there is a strong answer to this question in my book. It was not intentional, but it so happens. It is that Vithalbhai Patel, who was the brother of Vallabhbhai Patel, he brings a bill to legalize inter-caste marriage, whether it is Pradiloma or Anuloma, to legalize all inter-caste marriages within Hindus. Okay. And when this particular bill was brought, there was a strong opposition to this bill. Okay. And Mahatma Gandhi opposed it. Lokamanya Balagangadhara Tilak opposed it. So they told that this is not right. Two jadis should not marry, it should not be legal. So what happens actually is very pathetic thing. See, people will get married when they fall in love. Okay. And after that, when there is some legal dispute, their descendants will find that their parents' marriage was not legal. It was a very horrible thing. So either you have to get out of Hinduism to marry. So Vithalbhai Patel said that this was all wrong, nonsense. So we have to make intercaste marriages legal. He brought Inter-Caste Marriage Act bill, and there were people who supported it. Who were the people who supported it? Lala Lajpat Rai, who was the president of Hindu Mahasabha, he supported it. Another one person who supported it was a person who had renounced politics and had gone for yoga sadhana, Sri Aurobindo. When Sri Aurobindo was asked, a person who had renounced politics, who was not interested in politics, he thought that it was a matter that is very serious, it is worth answering. So he answered. See, what he answered is very important. He said that if people do it out of their own conviction, it is good. That is what we need. That is how the society should change. But legally this has not been permitted. So the hurdle has been created legally. So we have to fight it legally. So I welcome this legal approach to intercaste marriage, because Hindu society has to become strong and make a very lean, efficient system. For that, this is the best thing. Aggressive, efficient Hindu society. For that, intercaste marriage is needed. Okay, so we have supported intercaste marriage. The Hindu Sanatana Dharma has supported intercaste marriage. There is in Rig Veda, there is a famous statement that I am a Vaidya and my wife is, I am a Kavi, my parents are Vaidya and workers, agricultural worker. So it shows that there is intercaste marriages right from the time. We never prohibited it. In fact, talking about Pratiloma marriage, you take the Yadu Vamsa of Sri Krishna, it stems from a Pratiloma marriage, not from Anuloma marriage. Okay, a Brahmin girl and a Kshatriya man. It is from that the Yadukula comes. So the Pratiloma marriage has created the greatest servants of Hindu Dharma. Okay. Now, coming back, you take Veer Savarkar. Veer Savarkar says that from pole to pole, the entire humanity is one. And he says that all the races are wrong. This he was saying in 1923, when the West was thinking, even the humanists in the West were thinking that race is as kind of a, was as kind of, some kind of a reality. So he said that races are wrong. And he says that all the walls that you try to build between a human being and another human being, with the help of the Shastras or your prophets, they will all crumble before the sexual attraction. Okay. So, if you actually talk about intercaste marriage and honor killing, Hindu Dharma has been against it. Sanatana Dharma has been against it. It is very clear. So, what Thirumavalavan says is simply a colonial inherited almost nonsense.
Thank you, Haran Prasanna, for that very relevant and appropriate question. With that, this discussion comes to an end. Thank you, Aravindan. Thank you, Ramasamy sir. Thank you, Ramachandran sir, for such a very lively and informative and a very important discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aramarakatlai also.